Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.
It takes a lot of ingredients to fix or build a car, like cooking, but without the frozen dinner easy way out. eBay Motors has 122 million parts. It's always the right fitment, so you can follow any recipe to a T. Whether it's a vintage Italian coupe that's classic like Grandma's meatballs or a German luxury car that's as complicated as Oma's rouladen, to cook up something great in the garage, use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
TheChairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Badlands podcast, the only podcast out there that is 100% chiseled and is proudly back where it rightfully belongs, here on the Chairshot Radio Network. I am Mags, and joining me again, Mr. Paul Tolley. Paul, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited again this week. This show gets me excited, you know. I look forward to this all week.
Yeah, I mean, and the listeners do too. The amount of great comments and praise that we're getting on Twitter for this show coming back. Yeah, it's I'm glad we did it, and the person to thank for that after a week on assignment, shall we say, Mr. Ray Cash. Ray, how are you, sir?
I love how we use assignment like we're like a real news station. Ray Cash on assignment. In Sheboygan.
What's the weather like there? It's raining sideways.
What's my boy on Family Guy? If y'all watch Family Guy, what's the weather like, Willie? It's bad. Good to be back. So let me say this. I missed the shit out of y'all last week, and y'all had a doozy of a topic. And I hate I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but this one is gonna be fun.
Well, I mean, before we get to that, give us some like a quick footnotes of your the way you were thinking for last week's topic.
Remind me what it was again.
Oh, so you missed it that much.
I have such a terrible short-term memory. Remind me what it was again.
What was it?
See, it's not just me. It's not just me.
You absolute pair of arseholes.
Yeah, you're bringing up your Excel sheet to find out what it was.
Going through the Twitter. What was it?
I'm looking for it now. I can't fucking find it.
Oh, okay. The first one, I know I did the if Vince didn't buy the WWF. I know
it was the curtain call.
Curtain call.
Curtain call, yeah. It's a good one.
Heathens. You absolute heathens.
I'll tell you this. Triple H becomes the top heel very quick. Much quicker. I think Triple H gets pushed very heavy. I don't think Waltman leaves for WCW.
We didn't touch on X-Pac.
We didn't even mention him, did we?
Yeah.
This is a footnote in the wrestling world, that's why.
Yeah.
Well, he actually is low-key. I know this is going to sound crazy considering how Hall and Nash created NWO. But Waltman was probably the biggest beneficiary because he got out of a bad contract, got into a great contract, and got the cushiest job ever being the bump guy for the NWO. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's... And then left that and came back and became X-Pac. Waltman's whole career was made off the curtain call, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have been stuck in that 1, 2, 3 kid mentality, wouldn't he?
Sure would have been. Mm-hmm. I think Sean needed. God, that sounds so fucked up to think and say, but Sean needed to break his back for the good of his life because he was going to drink himself or do something to himself horribly. The road he was going down, and breaking his back gave him the clarity to sit the fuck down. You know, find God if you really believe that or not, and figure himself out. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, if the curtain call doesn't happen, I don't think the curtain call made Shawn even more Teflon. Because Shawn felt like, I did the one thing nobody in history's ever done, and you can't do shit about it. That don't happen. Shawn's still Teflon, but he's not Teflon as he was. And maybe Vince has more leverage to get through to him. And maybe with Hunter being an equal, because Hunter was a subordinate for so long in the Clique. Remember, the reason the Clique was originally, Shawn and Scott. Shawn got Kevin hired. Waltman came on as a young boy. Hunter was the last of the five. Hunter was the guy driving the van, right?
Hunter was the Shane Douglas of the group.
He really was, right? Well, Shane Douglas was the Shane Douglas of the group.
Yeah, that's
shout out to Shane Douglas and PJ Polacco. But I think that if with Hunter's rise to stardom much earlier, maybe Hunter would have had the gravitas in the company to say, Shawn, chill the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, here's one that you'll like. Here's one you really like. I know this is I'm twisting a lot of threads and untying a lot of them, but some kind of way you look at that. You look at Hunter being a top guy in 95, 96, and not in 2000 or 99. Look at Shawn having people around him not having the gravitas to continue to be a dick the way he was, and having people around him who may be able to tell him to chill the fuck out. I think you can flip that to 1998, and maybe Brett doesn't get screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's certainly something we talked about.
Yep.
We mentioned that if Shawn, like you said, it made Shawn Teflon. If that hadn't happened, then would he have had the confidence to be so ballsy on the screw job?
Well, so if you believe what we've learned, the screw job was all Hunter. Hunter put the bug in Vince's ear. Shawn was the last one to come along with it.
Hunter and Jim Cornette.
Yes. And Shawn was the last one to go along with it. Well, Hebner was. Well, Hebner did go along with it. Hebner had no choice. But of the people who created the idea, Shawn was the last one, right? I'm thinking of Cornette and Hunter and maybe Pritchard. I don't know if he was involved, but then Vince, and then Hunter and Shawn was last. What I think changes is maybe Brett isn't champion at that moment, right? We have a new star in Hunter. We can change things around a bit. We have more. Hunter's not playing in the slop with the Godwins for a full year, right? Things are different now. And then on top of that, Austin's still building up. Austin will still become big. He may not have blown up with the 316 because of the King of the Ring, but he was headed to superstardom anyway. So I just feel like the roster may be different, may be layered differently, where we don't get put in that scenario where Brett has to leave because of the contract, which Vince was cool with, but has to drop the title. We may not be there, Mm-hmm. In fact, here's one for you. Maybe this never happens.
We went down that line as well.
Yeah. So I don't want to take up too much time on this Badlands because we have a lot of threads to weave here. But I just think those are some of the things that I was thinking of when I was thinking of the curtain call. And it's so much that you could think of. But the one thing that doesn't change is I think everything WCW wise happens. I don't think that affects anything. Well,
we had a slightly different tack with that, and you can definitely go and check that back out in the archives. But I proposed that if the curtain call didn't happen, there wouldn't be as many kind of issues with Scott and Kevin kind of seeing their friends being punished. So that doesn't give them that added ammunition to go along with attacking the WWE the way that they did.
That is interesting. I didn't think about that. That may be true.
And the best part of it for me was one that Paul came up with that I didn't even consider, and that's the effect it had on Mick Foley and Mankind.
He was well, look at us.
Anyway, go and check out that episode in the archive. And the reason why I wanted your kind of take on it is obviously, one, because you are an integral part of this team, and you missed last week's episode, so it was cool to get your kind of thoughts on it. But two, the overlord of Chairshot pitched an idea recently to us three that he would take our topics and he would do an article on them kind of after the fact, his kind of general thoughts. And I went back to him and said, maybe it'd be an idea that we talk about your picks for that topic, just for like a 5-10 minute segment, see if we agree, disagree with what Mr. DeMarco thinks about the topics we put forward.
And that's going to be fun because us three are fans. I've stepped foot in the ring. I've done some stuff with a promotion before, but like nothing regular. Greg is an indie promoter and has been for 15 plus years. So it's going to be cool to see the mind of an actual promoter.
Thinking about
that should be fun.
Completely different perspective.
Yeah,
exactly. But that's for a future episode when we're on the here and now. And last week it was your choice, Paul. Do you want to tell the listeners what your pick was?
Do you remember what your pick was?
Do you remember the event that the pick was at?
Let me just look it up. So we've going back to WrestleMania 30, and the what if is, what if Brock Lesnar does not end the streak?
That's big, bro. I think, look, just real quick, round the horn. I think that is the greatest accomplishment in pro wrestling history. It's beating the streak. What do y'all think?
Greatest in history. It's certainly up there.
The reason I say that is because people win titles all the time. Jack Swagger is a world champion. That don't mean shit, right? There's not really a lot of things that you can win in kayfabe in professional wrestling that are really bigger than championships. The streak was bigger than the championship, I think.
It was the focus of WrestleMania. It became the focus of WrestleMania.
21 years. And to break that, and by the way, I was there. I was at WrestleMania 30. So
were you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was there. Yeah. Yeah, it was a hell of a weekend. I'll tell you that story later. It was New Orleans. It's a weekend. Yes.
So before we get into the topic, I've got actually a quick couple of questions for you. So
it's not trivia, is it?
No, it's
Brock Lesnar wrestled The Rock at SummerSlam 2002.
Yeah, can you name every pay-per-view match that Brock's ever had? No, since he returned in 2012 at Extreme Rules, how many matches had Brock had since then?
Can you repeat the question?
So Brock returned. Brock spent some time out from the WWE, didn't he? Came back at Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
So how many matches has he had up to then? Like up to now, from 2012?
Since between 2012 and now?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna have to fill in the you have to fill in the calculation time with some idle chatter.
Can I give a guess?
Go on. Yeah, I mean, there's no point up for grabs. Just to give me a number.
I'm gonna go with 57.
That's actually not far off. The answer's 65.
Oh wow, I would have gone nowhere near.
So the reason, let me tell you how I came up with that answer. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I'm gonna tell you how I came up with that answer. Brock usually wrestles at least 5 matches a year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2012 to 2021 is 10 years. If you count the year 2012. So if you do 5 times 10, that's 50. Then there are some years where he wrestled a lot more than 5. So I figured it's got to be somewhere close to 60. And you look at your boy make it. This is not Steiner math. This is cash math.
I like the technique. My technique was I was just going to shout out 17.
Just a random number. Shout out a random number with no thought process behind it whatsoever.
And I'm so glad I didn't.
He's fought Roman Reigns 7 times alone, bro. 17 times alone.
So in that same period from 2012 Extreme Rules, how many matches has The Undertaker had up to now? Clearly he's retired, but how many has he had?
From 2012 to now.
From 2012 to now.
17.
That's actually not bad. That's not a bad guess. It's 24.
24, okay.
Anyway, a little bit of trivia for you there, folks. But yeah,
I've got a question for you. We'll get to the topic in a minute. Okay. I've got a question. But blast from the past, okay? 10 years time. So just go whatever 10 years time is, 20, 30 something. Will Brock Lesnar be on the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers?
He should be.
Can I tell y'all an open secret? He should be now.
Man.
He should be now.
Wow.
I mean, he checks all the boxes. He draws money. He's won every championship. He's legitimate as fuck. He's changed the business. That's a big one.
Yeah. Who'd he replace then? Right. So obviously we did 2 years worth of podcasts. We found it was Flair, Hogan, Austin, and The Rock. Who'd he replace?
Flair.
Oh,
wow. Flair was our number one. Flair was dead cert.
Look, and I'm not gonna lie. Maybe some of this is maybe some of this is based on my personal feelings about Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
But in the modern era of professional wrestling, I'm so sorry about everything before 82. So I'm sorry. In the modern era, in the WrestleMania era of professional wrestling, you can tell the story of wrestling without Ric Flair.
Oof.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Think about it. Legitimately, what has Ric Flair done that if you were to write down a time capsule for the aliens when they come and destroy the planet in 2,000 years, and you would say this was professional wrestling from 1982, 83, from WrestleMania 1 to 2021. What did Ric Flair do that the world could not be told without telling that story? It's not on there. Nothing of note that is like.
I put to you the woo off from TNA.
Well, yeah, if you want to laugh, good point. That's a good point.
It makes sense.
The further we go into wrestling history becoming WWE, which is the further we go into the future, the more a reality that becomes.
Sure.
Ric Flair was never there, really.
Yeah.
And I'm not even just talking about WWE. I'm talking about professional wrestling in general. Because people in you can put if you can't tell the story of professional wrestling without Sting. And I say that because what the transformation Sting did from Crow Sting to Crow Sting, from Surfer Sting to Crow Sting, and the subsequent Starrcade match is something in wrestling history that will be remembered forever. That's important in the history of being told. So like, and Sting is not nowhere on close to the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. It doesn't have to just be WWE. I just think if you look at accomplishments, if you look at big moments, if you look at importance of what someone did, there's nothing. I mean, there's one thing I can give you, and that's the 1992 Royal Rumble. That's it. But ultimately, is that the great? I'd argue Royal Rumble wins. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a significant one, winning the title. But yeah, I do get the point, and I think that's always going to be an argument that happens for the rest of time, because you're limiting yourself to 4 picks out of the hundreds of thousands of people who've ever wrestled. You're always going to find arguments 2 and 4 why a wrestler should be or shouldn't be on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
We found that over 2 years.
Yeah, but we need a modern era wrestler on there eventually.
We need 10 picks. We need Mount Rushmore to be huge and just have 10 picks.
You realize how small that damn mountain is? You want it to be bigger?
We needed Trump to carve his face on there. I was sure he was going to do it, and then we could have expanded ours to 5.
Apparently, in Trump's office, there is a brass or cast iron kind of like statue of Mount Rushmore with his face on.
I gotta tell you,
a company actually made him one and sent it to him.
I gotta tell you, that pops me so hard. That is funny as fuck. That he went out of his way to do that. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go. If we ever revive the old format, it can be wrestling's Donald Trump's brass statue.
Hey, it's canon now. If he put it on there, it's canon.
Well, I don't think anything Donald Trump does is canon. He doesn't remember what he said from week to week. So anyway, let's not get political. Let's talk some wrestling. So, seeing as it was your topic, Paul, get us off. Guard the way. What is a WrestleMania? Who is a Brock Lesnar?
What is wrestling?
Where do we start? I went all over the place with this. So we'll obviously just start with the streak. So the rule was that it couldn't be ended earlier. So Undertaker goes into the match with Brock Lesnar with the streak. He defeats Brock Lesnar, so he still has the streak coming out of that. So he goes. So not the streak, but his future WrestleMania matches are Bray Wyatt, Shane McMahon, Roman Reigns, who did beat him, John Cena, and AJ Styles. So I started off just thinking, well, if the rest of the timeline remains the same, which one of those ends the streak? And I can only narrow it down to 2. Either Bray or obviously Roman. And I think it would have done a lot for both of them. I think Bray Wyatt would have cemented. It's almost like it would have been like a passing of the torch to Bray Wyatt as the next big mystical character that Bray Wyatt never really got. He never got that rub off anyone really. And as we know, he's now gone, unfortunately. And at the time it happened, I don't think Roman Reigns beating Undertaker. It did do a lot for him, but in a way it didn't, because the fans just didn't take it. They didn't take it well. So of that selection, and I'm gonna come back later and say about what different realities there could have been. But of that selection, I would have had him lose it the next year to Bray Wyatt.
Interesting. Very
34.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey folks, PC Tony here. Thanks to our new partnership with Angry Lemonade, you can save 10% on physical products and digital commissions using the promo code Chairshot. Head to angrylemonade.net to check out their amazing catalog of products and services. Use the promo code Chairshot to save 10%. That's angrylemonade.net.
This is your boy Kenny Killer telling you to make sure you check out thechairshot.com, bringing you breaking news, interviews, podcasts galore, everything pro wrestling. Make sure you check it out, thechairshot.com.
Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
So that the way I've approached this is I've built a timeline. I've gone essentially from WrestleMania 30 all the way through the subsequent pay-per-views leading up to WrestleMania 31.
Wow.
So I've done essentially a year's booking. it's a story. I mean, we can get into it if you're ready to hear my way of thinking with this.
Let me get comfortable.
Yeah. Sit back, get your hot chocolate. We're gonna do a deep dive.
Get your stock cubes.
Well, never do that. Never ever do that. That's horrific. So yeah, let's go back to WrestleMania 30, where when Tully proposed the change in the timeline would happen. So we'd still have the same epic match. We'd still have a lot of the same spots. Like the Hell's Gate being broken by Brock, essentially lifting and powerbombing, the counter of the old school into the F5. We definitely still get the laugh off because that is just absolutely iconic. But where it starts to differ for me is when Brock goes for that third F5. That's where Taker is able to counter into a tombstone, get the victory. We still get the moment where the crowd are stunned into silence. We don't get any audio. We get the graphic still, but this time, obviously, it doesn't read 21-1. It reads 22-0. And then we get Justin Roberts saying, here is your winner, The Undertaker. But instead of the boos, we get massive cheers. So then we get to the Raw next night. You don't see anything of Brock, you don't see anything of Undertaker, but you get Michael Cole and the commentary team really kind of pushing that these two had gone through hell, and that using the old WWE trope of they may never be the same again. So then we head into Extreme Rules. Extreme Rules goes pretty much as planned because Brock and Taker are still on the shelf. So you still get the Shield versus Evolution. You still get Daniel Bryan retaining his title against Kane. Going to Payback. We get the same storyline with Bryan versus the McMahons, but instead of the ridiculous kind of surrender your title or your wife is fired bullshit, you get more of a storyline where Daniel Bryan has to prove he's capable of defending the title or he's going to be stripped. Which leads to what happens. He's unable to defend. The title becomes vacant, as it did on in the same timeline. I think it was June the 9th, the episode of Raw where he was officially stripped. So then we go to Money in the Bank, where we had the ladder match to say who was the new champion, won by Lol Cena wins, as we all know. But instead of that, I went with the cult leader Bray Wyatt winning that match, throwing Cena off the top of the ladder, getting a little bit of revenge for the WrestleMania defeat he had at WrestleMania 30. But as Bray's music plays, we get a little bit of lights flickering, a bit of audio distortion, which usually means a challenger is gonna step up, but nothing happens that day. We just get the lights flickering, and then it goes back to normal. Bray celebrating with the title. So then we go to Battleground. That's the next pay-per-view. And in the run-up to that, Jericho still returns. He is hell-bent on wanting to face Bray Wyatt. So the commentary hint that the flickering lights and the audio issues were because of Jericho. But they don't specifically say it was because of Jericho. They just hint at it. So we still get the match between Bray and Jericho, but Bray's able to defeat Jericho. And then once he wins at Battleground, we get the light flickering again, but this time it's more prominent, more kind of almost like lightning. And then you hear the Bray Wyatt theme music, but you also hear kind of like an overlay of really heavy footsteps. So then we're on the run into SummerSlam. And then we get weeks of kind of mind games where these audio and these visual kind of tropes are really sending Bray almost into the brink of insanity. He's becoming paranoid, kind of a shell of that cult leader that he was. Starts mistrusting his own faction, becomes a little bit isolated, starts cutting long, rambling promos about not being able to sleep and a spectre haunting his dreams. And over the weeks, he becomes more and more detailed with these promos, saying that essentially the visions were masked in smoke and shadow. But as the weeks go by, he sees the face of this spectre, and he knows who it is, and he demands that the Undertaker comes out from the shadows to face him man to man. The bell tolls at the end of the go home episode of Raw for SummerSlam. SummerSlam comes around. Undertaker beats Bray Wyatt in a war, becomes the new heavyweight champion. So then we go to Night of Champions, which is next. Bray still being tormented by this loss to the Undertaker. That torment is kind of added on to by Chris Jericho, who was spent the last few weeks taking out all the members of the Wyatt family, meaning that Bray was alone this time. He's not just isolated himself. He actually was alone. Nobody in his corner to back him up. So he's fighting this war on two fronts, but he's hell bent on getting that title back. So he demands that Undertaker gives him a title shot. He says he's not afraid of the Taker anymore. He knows his weak points and he knows he can beat him. So Taker agrees to the match at Night of Champions, and Bray comes within a hair's breadth of winning the match. But Jericho interferes, costs Bray the match, which then continues the Bray and Jericho feud. But we still have Taker as the champion. So then we get into Hell in a Cell. We don't see Taker at Hell in a Cell. It goes pretty much as it does in the standard timeline, where Cena beats Randy Orton to become number one contender, and that kind of draws the ire of the Authority. Going into Survivor Series now, we've got Cena being targeted by the Authority in the run-up to Survivor Series. And he agrees to put his number one contendership on the line against Seth, which is Triple H's chosen one at the time. And if the Architect wins, he gets a title shot. But if Cena wins, the Authority have to relinquish their control of the company. We don't get the ridiculous 5-on-5 match. We don't get the stipulation where Cena's teammates' careers are on the line, but Cena himself was safe. We don't get any kind of a nonsensical appearance of Sting for him to only be kind of buried in the months after that. It's just a simple case of the best man wins. And at Survivor Series, John Cena is that best man. So you're with me up to now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So going into TLC, and the battle between the Authority and Cena is over, and Cena uses his title contendership to challenge Taker. We get the horrible trope of the champion coming out first, which is something that we all detest. And we get the spectacle of a Taker B-level pay-per-view entrance. But then when Cena's music hits, there's no Cena. Cena doesn't come out. The music starts up again. Still no Cena. We cut to Undertaker in the ring, looking confused, like where's my opponent? And then on the Titantron, we see essentially a camera shot where the cameraman is frantic, running to the back, and we see a battered and bloody Cena being attended to by medics. Clearly, he's been brutally attacked. He's quickly bundled into an ambulance that heads off to a local medical facility, not a hospital, a local medical facility. Of
course.
Where you get the best treatment.
Exactly. So the camera pans to follow the ambulance leaving the arena, and we get a glimpse of the car park in the distance. And you see a black Lincoln Town car crawling into camera shot. And the camera zooms in to see who's in the car, and you see the rear window quickly rolling up. But you do spot who is sat in the back of that car, very, very distinctive person. It's Paul Heyman. Right? So we then head into Royal Rumble. And after weeks of goading The Undertaker, trying to get a rematch for his WrestleMania defeat, Brock eventually does get what he wants. He gets that rematch with the Deadman. And after a fight that you could compare favorably with their WrestleMania match, Brock defeats Taker and takes the title home with the Undertaker essentially being left for dead. Further on the pay-per-view, we still get Roman winning the Royal Rumble. So then we are going into Fastlane, the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania. We've got Roman as the lineal challenger, but Undertaker is hell-bent on finding a way back to Brock. Lesnar does what Lesnar does best, and he mocks Taker, laughs at him, refuses point blank to face Undertaker. Not only at Fastlane, but in Brock's own words, he will never face the Undertaker again. A frustrated Undertaker can only see one way out of this. He has to find a way to force himself into that title picture, and that pathway runs through Roman Reigns. So Taker challenges Roman to put that number one contendership on the line. Roman brushes it off. Absolutely not. Dismisses the Undertaker's demands. So Taker beats Roman up, leaves him bleeding. Taker threatens to remove Roman from the title picture permanently if he doesn't give him the shot. So Roman agrees to a match at Fastlane, but it's a last man standing match. Winner takes all. So we have a brutal war between Roman and Undertaker, where they both end up beating the living hell out of each other, both bloodied, both bruised, both battered. But we don't get a definitive winner because neither man is able to answer that 10 count. So in the weeks running into WrestleMania 31, we've got Brock, again, smarmy, cocky Brock, laughing because there's no challenger to his title. There's no definitive winner to the Fastlane match. So it's going to be an easy day at the office for the Beast incarnate. But just as he and Paul Heyman are leaving the ring, we hear the familiar sounds of World Laugh hit the arena. Cena's back. Thinking that we've got the opponent, the crowd are absolutely enraptured. But that reaction is very short-lived when Cena reveals that he's not been cleared to compete and he may never be cleared again. The attack was that brutal. So that look of fear from Brock and Paul kind of turns back into the sneers. They think they've won. But Cena does drop another bombshell that he's back in the WWE, but not as a wrestler. He's there to fill the void that was left after he basically caused the implosion of the Authority. So he's the new general manager. So over the coming weeks, Cena deliberates over who will be Brock's challenger. Eventually, he decides that both Undertaker and Roman will be in that title match. So we get to San Francisco. Brock's title on the line, Taker's streak on the line. And as we, after a brutal war, we come to the finish. We've got Roman Reigns slumped in the corner, absolutely spent, just lifeless. Taker and Brock are going at it tooth and nail. And in a kind of revisit to their match from the WrestleMania previous, Brock goes for the F5. Taker counters it into a tombstone. But just as he's about to drop Brock on his stack of dams, Roman spears both of them whilst Brock is in the position for the tombstone. Brock takes the brunt of this damage, obviously, but it knocks Taker off his feet. Taker staggers to get back to his feet, and he's put down with a Superman punch. Roman pins Taker. Roman wins the World Heavyweight title, but more importantly, Roman breaks the streak. And on the post-Mania Raw, we get a very similar scene that we would have got 3 years down the line when Roman is booed for damn near 10 minutes before hitting the famous 5-word sentence, "This is my yard now."
Oh, goosebumps.
One of the greatest promos of all time.
Mm-hmm. We actually, for a quiz, we did, I timed how long that was, and it's nearly 8 minutes of constant booing.
Every time he lifts the mic up, they boo more, and he just brings it back down.
Mm-hmm.
He's just looking at him.
He's there. He has the whole crowd there in the palm of his hand.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well,
so, yeah, that's my storyline.
Thank you, Vince.
I think there's a lot of sense in there.
There's a lot of sense.
There's a lot of wackiness as well.
John Cena as the GM, really, that came out of nowhere.
But I appreciate you bringing full circle him killing the Authority. Look at you.
Oh yeah,
and also the issue he had with Brock. I could have easily gone with he faced Brock, but no, I thought I'd throw in a little curveball. But it essentially leads to the same kind of idea that Paul had, that Roman is the guy to break that streak. He should have been that guy in the first place.
Okay.
I like that.
Is it on me, or did you have some more you wanted to go with, Paul?
No, I was just talk through a bit of that. I wasn't expecting a full on booking. I'm impressed.
I said I was going in deep on this. The minute you mentioned it as a topic, my mind started working on how do we get to the streak being broke.
So what happened to Bray Wyatt?
Bray Wyatt ended up having a little run as champion, which he did in real life. He ended up having a feud with Chris Jericho.
Okay, so would that have been a WrestleMania match?
I don't know if it lasted that long. Because
they had a steel cage match like the month after or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it was done, so it wasn't very long.
I mean, I also didn't book Zack Ryder as well, so. Every wrestler.
I was interested in Bray because I picked Bray to end the streak in my, it wasn't a fantasy booking, but just in my what if, and obviously he was Undertaker's opponent the following year. So I was listening out for Bray, and then
I mean I wanted to keep it as kind of close to the original timeline. I didn't want to get to a point where I was rebooking everything that happened, just seeing where I would have gone from Undertaker not losing at WrestleMania and how that next year, I suppose, would have panned out.
Yeah, I mean, Ray said that the biggest achievement of all time, ending the streak. Yep. In yours, Roman ends the streak and wins the title. So that's that undoubtedly the biggest.
I'm here. Look.
And reclaims his yard. And reclaims his yard.
What was it called? What they call 33 is the greatest property dispute in wrestling history.
I need to ask a question though.
Mm-hmm.
From a fan perspective, knowing the fans as we do, Undertaker losing it in a triple threat. I know he was the one who got pinned.
That's a good point.
Would it have the same gravitas as what Brock did? And it doesn't necessarily have to have the same gravitas, because it's a what if Brock didn't win it.
But people may feel cheated that it wasn't one-on-one. That's a good point.
And that could be a storyline to continue a Taker and Roman feud, that you only beat me at WrestleMania because Brock did the majority of the damage. So we get to WrestleMania 32 and we get Roman versus Taker.
You're gonna have to give us the year. You're gonna have to give us the full year.
Are you pulling a dusty finish on the streak? What? What? Oh my god!
The streak is as dusty as a ball. I mean, the guy beat Giant Gonzalez as part of the streak. by disqualification. So it's as dusty as ever.
A win is a win, Playboy. Well, you take it how you can get it.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that he was able to get 8 minutes with Gonzalez is impressive.
And ridiculous at the same time.
Oh, they should have gone full circle. Imagine that someone ended the streak with chloroform.
Imagine if Giant Gonzalez was the mystery opponent and beat the streak.
Oh man, full circles. I like full circles.
Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.
It takes a lot of ingredients to fix or build a car, like cooking, but without the frozen dinner easy way out. eBay Motors has 122 million parts. It's always the right fitment, so you can follow any recipe to a T. Whether it's a vintage Italian coupe that's classic like Grandma's meatballs or a German luxury car that's as complicated as Oma's rouladen, to cook up something great in the garage, use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Oh man. Okay.
Your turn, Ray.
All right. I don't know if I could. I do have quite a tangled weave, and a web of weaves and weaves of webs and whatnot. So I'm starting from WrestleMania 30.
Good point. Good point to start at.
But I bring that up because it's important to note that if you've noticed historically, on the 10s of the Manias, there's a shift in booking, right?
Yeah.
WrestleMania 10 is where Brett finally gets the championship, right? It might be his first championship, I can't remember, but you know what I'm saying. Like that's the one where there's no Hogan, there's no Warrior, Savage is in a match with Crush at the beginning of the show. Like it's different now.
No, WrestleMania 10's opener was Brett versus Owen.
I don't mean literally. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying Savage isn't in the main event. Savage is
main event,
yeah.
It's almost like an era, isn't it? Like a new era starts.
Exactly. That era changes. Shawn and Razor and whatnot. WrestleMania 20. We finally going with these smaller guys that deserve it, and Eddie and Voldemort. We're finally giving them. They got the reins. 30. Bryan beats it all, and defeats the Authority. B+ player is actually a champion, and Brock. But it's also you think about that when I'm thinking about this, because I'm booking the way I see my what if is a change in philosophy and booking and era. Remember too, Punk is gone right before, right? Okay, so clearly it has to start with Taker beating Brock.
Well,
Big Bang Boom done with that. That's the rule. So it's important to note that Brock was kind of languishing a bit before that match with Taker. He was winning, but he had come off of a not a very fondly looked upon feud with Triple H. He wasn't at his highest form. In the eyes of the fans.
Nowhere near. And he wasn't really winning either. He lost the feud to Cena. He lost the feud to Triple H ultimately.
Well, he won 2 out of 3. He won 2 out of 3 matches. So he won it. It's just he lost the match you remember.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, maybe the most important one. But anyway, so him being the streak was the precursor to him creating Suplex City at SummerSlam that year. Well, that clearly doesn't happen because Brock doesn't have that springboard. So SummerSlam, I have a Brock versus Undertaker rematch. Now, the reason Taker didn't wrestle after that match was because he was so heavily concussed and so hurt from that match that he had to take off so much time. Well, he's not concussed if Brock doesn't F5 him 3 fucking times. Okay.
I mean, in the actual timeline, we got Taker and Brock at SummerSlam as well, didn't we?
Yeah, but it wasn't that year. It was like 2 years later.
Was it?
Yep. because that year was the year Brock won the championship.
Oh, it was the
from
year
Cena.
after. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It was the year after. Yeah.
So instead of that, I have Brock versus Taker in a rematch, and I have Cena versus Roman Reigns for the championship. Now, the reason I have that is because the show before was Night of Champions when they had the Fatal 4-Way with Cena, Roman, Orton, and Kane. And at the end of the match, Roman almost won the match, but Cena snuck away to win. At the end of the match, the show ends with them looking at each other, and Cena basically giving them now like, "Yeah, I know, bitch, you coming for this shit." Okay. So, if you remember the WrestleMania SummerSlam 2014 was big because it had 5 main events, and it was kind of the first real vestiges of the Shield finally getting their comeuppance, right? So it was the Ambrose versus Seth lumberjack match. Roman finally got his one-on-one with Orton. I would have that happen on a Raw for the number 1 contendership, and then Roman gets the title match at that, right? Everything else can stay the same. Brock beats Taker because, he's got to get something. And then Roman beats Cena. Vince says, let's go with the young guys, okay? Going forward, going to the Rumble, who decides to come back and make himself known? Daniel Bryan. Okay? Daniel Bryan wins the Royal Rumble. The Rumble that we all want him to win. The Rumble that he was eliminated early on by Bray Wyatt because, as fans think, well, they didn't want him in the main event. Okay?
Okay.
So right now we're looking at Roman versus Bryan for the championship, right? Now, everything between, if you look at what happened with, because he faced Bray Wyatt at 31, right? Scratch that.
I did.
You did. Who made their debut at WrestleMania 31?
Sting.
More trivia.
No, it's Sting.
Mm-hmm.
We finally get the I never cared for it. I never wanted it, but that big feud or match between Sting and Taker. Okay? Mm-hmm. We get that at 31. Of course, Taker wins. Okay. And at the Rumble, at Mania, Seth cashes in like he did and wins the title, which leads to Roman turning heel. Think about that, okay? Because Roman turns heel that pissed off that his moment was screwed by his former brother. Daniel becomes a bigger babyface, so on and so forth. Bing, bang, boom, whatever. Okay. So that's that. Fast forward. There's one other major moment that happens right before WrestleMania 31, and that's Brock Lesnar announcing that he resigned because his contract was up after WrestleMania 31. In this world, Brock doesn't resign. So Brock
he's all elite.
Damn, all the way in 20. Was he just sitting there waiting in Jacksonville for them to make a fucking company? No, he goes back to UFC for one last run. Mm-hmm. He'll come back eventually, I'm sure, but he goes back to UFC for one last run. And whoever he wrestles at WrestleMania it could be Bray Wyatt. It's not consequential, right? Necessarily to the story. But it's important to note that, what is the law of thermodynamics? Matter isn't created nor destroyed. It can only be changed or whatever. If you go one way and things change, you got to go the other way. If Brock got springboarded because of the streak, him losing that match would seemingly take him the other way. And
a downward spiral.
Exactly. And Brock being a businessman, Vince gave him the win at SummerSlam over Taker as a make good in this situation. But he's thinking, well, look, my time here is finished. We'll talk about this another time, but I'm going to go do something I care about. All right. WrestleMania 32. Who comes back for WrestleMania 32? Shane McMahon. Why does Shane McMahon come back for WrestleMania 32? Seth Rollins gets hurt. John Cena is hurt. Everybody and their mama hurt, and they need a big marquee match for The Undertaker. Who's the one superstar that didn't have a match at WrestleMania 32? Bray Wyatt.
Don't say you're having Shane McMahon break the streak. Jeez.
No, hell no, no. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite. Shane McMahon doesn't come back.
Daddy, will you love me? I beat the streak. Now you have to love me.
Whee! As he jumps off the cage. No, I don't think Shane McMahon comes back. Not then. Maybe he comes back in a backstage capacity, but him coming back was such a big moment. But he came back because Vince made the call and said, hey, man, I need you. That call is not made if they already have something set. And you have Undertaker, who has not lost the streak, so he's still top level, isn't getting hurt because he ain't getting dropped on his head 3-4 times a night, and just beat the last vestiges of the one person everybody wants to see him wrestle, right? Bray versus Taker, as Paul said at the beginning of the show, was something that was always inevitably having to happen because they're both the big, scary, spooky guy of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It happened at 31 because, honestly, it happened at 31 because they wanted to give Sting an extra year to get in, and they wanted to run Sting Taker in Dallas. Sting's from Dallas, Taker's from Houston, 100,000 people. Sting just got hurt. It just happened that way. That, for those of you listening, that's the real thing that happened. That's why they both fought other people at WrestleMania 31. Not because Hunter wanted to get because they had a plan. The plan didn't work. In this situation, you have a bigger situation at hand because after the streak was broken, it was basically all we got to get what we can get with Taker, right? Because Taker was hurt, streak was broken. You don't know how long he wants to do this. Now Taker will tell you. He said in many interviews, the streak changed the way I was thinking about things. I thought about it. Should I really be doing this anymore? He didn't lose the streak. Taker would be wrestling till he's 95 if he never lost the streak, because he's such an old OG. He's gonna go down until the ship sinks. 100,000 people. You get a souped up Bray Wyatt. You could even have Kane at the ringside. Versus souped up Bray Wyatt with the Wyatt family. You can even have Kane at ringside for Taker. Bing, bang, boom. Your big marquee match. Bray Wyatt breaks the streak in front of 100,000 people. Undertaker retires after the match by doing everything he did at 33. And that's his swan song at home in Texas in front of 102,000 people. What else I got here? I got some else I got written down.
That's huge.
Then he comes back 6 months later at Super Showdown to get that $1 million check from the Saudis.
Well, if you remember, Saudi Arabia was not a thing. We didn't think about that. But so much of the reason Taker kept coming back was because he wanted to go out in a way that he felt was fitting.
Yeah.
Right? The matches he kept losing, he kept performing so horribly, he didn't want to leave a legacy like that. They need to have a really good match, so I could do this some more. I think that if he doesn't lose to Brock and he doesn't lose that confidence, he keeps building it up. He finally gets that match with Sting he always wanted, and he gives the streak to a person. And don't get me wrong, Brock used the streak fantastically well because he went on a run of all runs. But somebody that he could give back to the business too, and I say that because Brock is almost the same age as Taker. Bray was the new guard. You give back. Now you have a new superstar in Seth Rollins, who just won your championship, a new superstar in Roman Reigns, who won the title in his first championship match and carried on. You got Bryan back. I don't know if Bryan's still wrestling because whatever happened to him, it happened. But at least Bryan finally gets what fans wanted to have, which is a Rumble win. And now you got Bray, who finally gets cemented as that guy. Finally. Because you again, another salient point. Paul said nobody ever put Bray over as that person. And now, granted, his gimmick was such that didn't need wins or didn't want wins, quite frankly. But ultimately, you have to get over with the crowd in a sense of the crowd has to believe that you are what you say you are. And the Bray Wyatt gimmick died because you kept talking and talking and talking and talking and not bagging shit up. Legitimate, exactly. So I think Taker would be completely content hanging it up and being like, I appreciate y'all, we out of here.
But would Vince be content in that? Because Vince is the guy who trotted out Undertaker year in, year out because he needed a spectacle.
Well, see, while what you said is factually correct, it is in fact incorrect. Vince didn't try to Undertaker. Vince called Taker and Taker said yes because he felt he had to. Mm-hmm. Taker would, I think in this scenario, Taker wouldn't feel like I had to say yes because he finished the job. Taker in his mind never finished the job.
Yeah, it was a good kind of like bookend to his career.
Okay, but in this timeline then, where so Brock Lesnar doesn't end the streak, does Vince need Undertaker more to stay on, and does Undertaker see the need to stay on more? Because what you've done here now is you've removed Brock Lesnar, has he become, from those WrestleMania cards in the future. You said it exactly right, Ray. It was the two things. Firstly, breaking the streak put Brock Lesnar on a whole other level to what he was doing beforehand. He was nowhere near that level of just dominant, undefeatable monster. And then he backed it up with the squash of Cena at SummerSlam, which was a few months later, wasn't it? And no one's ever squashed John Cena. So removing that Lesnar from WWE, essentially, I mean, in your booking, he actually does leave. He goes to UFC for a run. What impact does that have on future WrestleManias? And does that mean Undertaker can't hang up the hat and the boots?
That's a very great point. Very good question. And Taker very well may be swayed, but I don't think he'll feel this sense of debt the way he did. Taker extended his career so long because he kept feeling like he was letting Vince down. You put me out here, you give me this, you made me who I am, you give me this platform and you put me in situations that I could have never dreamed, and I keep letting you down in situations that are the best. I let you down at WrestleMania 30 because I got concussed, right? I let you down at 31 because I wasn't healthy. I let you down at 32. I didn't let you down at 32. 32 was what it was. Everybody was hurt, right? But we did the best we could in the situation. I let you down at 33 because I was an old shell of a man. 34 was I felt good. But like I felt good, but the story we told and we built meant that was more about rebuilding the legacy of the Undertaker more so than giving the fans what they wanted to see, right? So much of him coming back was, well, I feel bad because I'm letting you down. And in this situation, none of this is let down. Him and Brock have a good match. He doesn't get concussed. 31, him and Sting have the legendary match they always wanted to have. He doesn't get hurt. 32, he has a really good to great match with Bray, putting over a new star. But that's why at the very beginning of this pitch or this what if that I'm pitching to you, gentlemen, I mentioned to you the change in culture and era of the 10s. I feel like Vince would say, I still got Cena. He's still here. Rock is back, because don't forget Rock came back for a little bit because Rock wrestled at 32. It was 8 seconds, but he wrestled at 32, right? And now I have a superstar Roman Reigns quicker than I made him a superstar. I have a superstar Seth Rollins. I have, I'm not going to play with fate if Bryan gets hurt or not, but let's say if he doesn't get hurt, that's another superstar, right? And now I got a superstar Bray Wyatt I can build around.
A made man Bray Wyatt.
Made man Bray Wyatt.
Made man Bray Wyatt.
Not. Don't forget. Also, one more thing to forget. Remember going into WrestleMania 32, Triple H won the World Championship going into 32 at the Royal Rumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was last eliminated? Dean Ambrose.
Yep.
Maybe 32 is Triple H versus Dean Ambrose for the championship, and Ambrose gets put over. But I think what I'm saying is, long story short, one of the biggest criticisms of that time period as fans was Vince kept pushing the old guys, didn't double down on the young guys he has now. Also, 32 was the beginning of the women's evolution because it was Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha in the triple threat match, which should have main evented, and maybe in this timeline does main event the show, right? So I just feel like
Trips versus Dean Ambrose probably would still main event.
Probably. But anything's possible situation. I guess long story short, what I'm saying is Vince ain't gonna make a change without seeing a reason to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If Brock's leaving in the scenario, because Brock's gonna do what he wants. You cannot change Brock's mind. When he has his mind made up, he's going to go. If Brock's gone in the scenario, if Taker's made his mind up that I'm gone in the scenario, then Vince got to double down with what he got.
His hand is forced.
Exactly. And I think that will be better. It may not be better for the monetary business in the meantime, but I think Vince also is for as much of, I don't want to sound like I'm giving fellatio and call him a visionary, but he sees things that aren't there, right? He can see where things are going before they go. He's shown that he has the propensity to do that over his 40-50 year booking career. I feel like he can see, well, we're heading in a place where this is going to be better for all of us. WrestleMania is going to sell out no matter who's main eventing. It could be a triple threat between us three. It's still going to sell out.
So let's do
record numbers. Record numbers.
Definitely. let's take you to Vince. Vince's a visionary statement from Vince then, from why Lesnar ended the streak, and a quote from him, it was to significantly enhance Lesnar's formidability to set up the next WrestleMania event. So Lesnar ended the streak to set up the next WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Who were the beneficiaries of the next WrestleMania? Mostly Seth Rollins, but also Roman Reigns.
And who are the biggest stars of today?
Yeah. Did they get there? Did they get there if they don't have the Brock Lesnar that ended the streak
Roman doesn't
to get a rub from? I don't
Roman
think it does.
doesn't. Well, no.
It does in my timeline, so fuck you. No, but that shows a very clear kind of mindset that Vince has, that there's never an end game. There's never an end game to him. There's never a storyline or a business end game. Everything is done to set up the next move, the next chess piece. And that's why he will always be way smarter than 99% of all wrestling fans, because we look at wrestling as there is an end point. We want our person as the champion. That's our goal. He's thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of that. Well, what will this person as champion do for the next person as champion? What will they do for that person as champion? It's brilliant. It's brilliant thinking. It really, really is. That's actually astounding thinking.
Yeah, there can't be an end game. It's an epic,
mm-hmm. and that's where
new characters will be born, and characters will die, and the story has to continue forever.
Yep. And that's where a lot of the fans' rhetoric and mindsets fall down, because they're saying my guy or my favorite wrestler is being buried, or they're not getting the push, or they should be champion. But they're not thinking the long-term story. They're just thinking about what they want in that singular point. And that quote there just shows how as Ray said, how visionary Vince McMahon actually is.
Well, fans are only beholden to who they like.
Mm-hmm.
Vince is beholden to every wrestler's contracted to that company. And he's beholden to every wrestler who will be contracted to that company. And in many ways, he's beholden to every wrestler who was contracted to that company. And on top of that, he's beholden to every employee and every shareholder. So I'm a Roman Reigns fan. Honestly, all I really have to give a fuck about is Roman Reigns. I care about a lot more than that, but that's all I have to care about. You know what I mean? But Vince is on the hook to care about, much like Tony Khan or Ghetto or Court Bauer or anybody else out here. Behold, Scott D'Amore, they're beholden Billy Corgan to all of their wrestlers. So when we talk about, as fans, talk about what we want and what we would do or wouldn't do, this right here, we're doing a whole what if about one scenario, and all of us stopped at a certain point. Because we're fans. Doesn't matter what we think. It's cool to talk about. Our opinions matter to us, but ultimately it doesn't matter to the business and the greater good of the wrestling business. So Vince can't say, man, well, you know what? That WrestleMania 31 match, fantastic. We're good now. No, because you got a show the next night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a completely higher level of thinking that people at his level, and he's been the best at it historically, have to think on that we don't. And the sooner we can accept that, I'm not saying we can't still have our opinions or feel a certain way, but the second we can accept that dichotomy and that difference, man, it'll be a much better place around here.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to another thought about Vince is, do you think he ever gets time to step back and look at the things that he's done? No. And look at the achievements he's done for the wrestling world. I mean, we all every wrestling fan gives him grief. He's the devil incarnate for a lot of wrestling fans. But can you imagine just being the focal point of so many of those major moments in wrestling and never having the time to look back and think, I did that. That was my idea. That was my kind of my thought process that created this moment, because he has to always be rolling on to the next show.
Yeah. I hope he gets the chance, but yeah, I don't think he will. He'll work himself into the grave.
That actually makes me feel quite sad.
Yeah,
that he doesn't get that chance to have like that self-reflection on the things he's actually achieved in the business.
Yeah, and in the position he's in, the past doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. We just said that everything is about the future. So, so yeah, what happened a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago is completely irrelevant to what he needs to be thinking about.
He's such a person that lives in the present and in the moment. And we joke about this, but even the people who are close to him tell you he doesn't sleep. That's not a joke. That's a real thing. He sleeps maybe 2-3 hours a night, maybe. But most importantly, he's the type of person that life moves so fast for him that he probably doesn't even feel like he's missing anything, because how can you miss what you lost if the second you turn around, you got something new coming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if, for example, maybe y'all haven't had this old adage over there across the pond, but there's a joke here, but it's not a joke, it's true, but that if Bill Gates dropped $100 bill, he would lose money if he bent down to pick it up. That's how fast things move for him financially.
Yeah.
That's Vince. Right? You don't have the time to think about, man, what just happened, because something right now is embarking on something different. And that's something that maybe you guys, maybe Stevenage and Burnley is such a fast place that y'all live like that, but I can't look, my little 8-hour day is overwhelming for me. This man is working from 5 a.m. to 3 a.m. I don't know. I can't do it.
Yeah, he's a machine. He's an absolute machine, and I can't even comprehend the amount of people that the WWE would need to employ to do all the jobs that Vince does when he does actually pass away.
That's a great point. And I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to bring that up because you're never going to have a good portion of people who are going to be assholes like, yes, and fuck you. Those of you who are happy about that, fuck you. Like, legitimately. Yeah. I don't wish nobody death on nobody. No, just because I don't like some decisions you made, no, man, forget that.
No, there's a bit too much of that. You see around. It'll be a terrible day for more than one reason. But hopefully it's a long way away.
Mm-hmm. So, anybody more to add to if Brock didn't beat the streak? Any more kind of like footnotes?
I had a couple more suggestions.
Please.
Okay.
On who breaks it.
Go for it.
Okay. So I want to test you out on the just a yes or no on these, or anything you want to any thoughts you want to throw out on it. So
let me just test my throat. No.
We've
veto.
We've covered Roman. We've covered Bray. So right, first one, Daniel Bryan. So the theory here is he goes on from WrestleMania 30 and his big moment and actually cements his status as top of the game, because after 30 it's kind of like that, isn't it? It's up and down his career until he leaves.
He gets hurt in May.
Yeah,
of course he does. Yeah,
that's the issue.
That's bullshit. One.
No, I mean,
he does come back for 31. He comes back for 31, but he gets hurt in May.
Yeah, I think he doesn't need it. I think if we're following the timeline that he stays fit and he then faces Undertaker at the next WrestleMania, that whole yes movement stuff and WrestleMania, he could have rode that for years and he'd still be a massive star. So I don't think he needs that rub from beating the streak. So I would veto that one.
That's a veto. Hey, right, next one.
Real quick. Taker always wrestled better against smaller guys. So that would be a match that would be one of those.
Oh, it'd be a great match.
Mentors. But I don't think he would win it.
Okay. Next one I've got is the Legend Killer reprising his role and Randy Orton taking it. And my theory here is Randy, it's like a passing of the WrestleMania torch. And suddenly Orton becomes unbeatable at WrestleMania.
Interested.
I think I'm in on that.
Yeah, wasn't the rumor and innuendo that Orton was actually slated to be that person who beat the streak?
Was it?
And as it got closer to WrestleMania, Orton felt a lot of pressure. And he actually said, "No, I don't know if I'm the guy for this." Not saying that he influenced Vince to change the booking, but he certainly threw that kind of doubt into Vince that ended up with him not winning the match. But yeah, I think that would have been a cool passing of the torch. I'd go with that. I like that.
There's a story on one of the Untolds. It may have been the Untold of that, but it was definitely an Untold about Randy Orton and Undertaker on the network, where Orton says one of his biggest regrets in his career is that the night before WrestleMania 21, when they wrestled, Taker took out an hour or whatever of time for them to go over their match, and Randy decided to go out and get drunk and get fucked up, and he felt like, he said he's been trying to make that up to Taker ever since. Randy was not in the headspace at that point to be given something that big. The only reason he got the championship was because Brock left and they wanted to erase him from their memories of the youngest.
He had to be the youngest champion,
yeah. So he was not ready at that time. Now though, if you full circle, I would like that. That would be a pretty cool.
And especially if it happens at 31, giving it a decade between the two matches. Like Ray said, they go with they do like those kind of changes over a decade. That would have made a lot of sense.
I'm glad you like that one. That was one of my favorites. I've got two more. So I was looking at the roster of the time of around about WrestleMania 32 onwards.
And he's gone with Big Cass.
I've gone Rusev.
Ooh. I don't think Rusev ever had the gravitas with the company to do it, but damn if he wouldn't be a great candidate.
Yeah. Thinking creating a monster out of him. Doing what they did for Brock with Rusev.
If they believed in him that much, that would be a great springboard. I can see that. I don't know if it would happen, but I can see it.
Okay. Yeah, that was clutching at straws there. Looking at the roster, he was the one that stood out as potentially. Right, final one. He never loses it.
That was always should have been an option. Always should have been.
My biggest fear. That was my biggest fear. Was that he never lost it.
You think that's a disaster if he?
I think it's a waste of a career.
It's a waste. Yeah, it's a waste of rub.
What's the point of everything? Every streak is meant to be broken. If it in a situation like that, what's the point? Who did you put over? What did you do for the business?
And it totally goes against that quote that you said about Vince, that he's always looking for what's going on next. I don't think they would have been that finality to take his career by being unbeaten at WrestleMania, because nobody benefits from that apart from Undertaker, and he's going to retire.
And consequently, I think the biggest damage he did to his career was not retiring after the streak was ended, because you basically made the streak look moot at that point.
Yeah.
And especially when you then feigned retirement so many times afterwards and then kept coming back for one last ride.
Yeah, I don't like that one either. But it is a potential. It is a potential. It is a what if. And imagine if it was the streak was still active now, and it was just fought every year through cinematic matches.
Yeah, I mean, he could film them like in a block. Just film about 5 of them, and just have the next half decade of matches all covered.
It'd be interesting.
I'm not against Taker doing cinematic matches every WrestleMania. I'm okay with that as long as it's outside of the canon of regular wrestling. But to throw one more in there to you, I think AJ would have been a good one to shout. But a healthy Samoa Joe would have been a very good shout.
Yeah.
Oh, you snake in the grass. After I pitched Samoa Joe as one of my faces of my newly formed company, and you went, no, that motherfucker's always injured. And you're pitching him as the man who beats the streak.
Time out.
Wow, the worm has turned, people. The worm has turned.
The parameters of the draft were people who were released in the past year. So we were talking of the parameters of the past year, and Samoa Joe has been concussed for about 17 months. So that's a little different than in 2014.
I am offended. I am offended at that.
hey, this is a great topic, Tyler. Ain't great ideas.
Yeah, it really was.
I like it.
I enjoyed that. I wish I'd come with a fantasy booking. I didn't. I wasn't expecting that. I love listening to them both. To them both.
But that again is what makes this kind of reiteration of Badlands so interesting, because we all three look at one simple question with 3 totally different kind of viewpoints, and we go on 3 totally different kind of tangents. Eventually, we arrive at essentially the same point with the Roman beating the streak or the Bray beating the streak, that kind of thing. But the way we approach it is, that for me has been the most interesting thing about this kind of revamp of Badlands, just how different our approaches are to answering the question.
But final question then. You say we all arrived at the same point. Was Brock ending the streak the right thing? Is actually the original what if the best scenario, or is one of the scenarios we put forward better?
I mean, we've got the massive benefit of hindsight, and we can't really tell if our scenario would pan out. I mean, we haven't accounted for injury. We haven't accounted for fan backlash. We haven't accounted for any of that stuff. But I think that you guys made a huge point about how it made Brock so untouchable, that it made him such a force in wrestling. I think it was the right thing to do. I think Brock was the guy to break the streak. And the kind of like butterfly effect and the roll on of the rub that people have got from Brock, even years and years down the line, because of this point when Brock became the essentially the beast incarnate. I think it was I think it's absolutely the right person to break that streak. But Ray says no.
No, I agree completely. I think it was the right thing. I think it was the right thing, the right time. Taker's most enduring nickname was the Phenom, right? And I think
not Booger Red.
Well, I mean that's Mean Mark's most enduring nickname. But I think so much of that Phenom aura comes from WrestleMania, and so I think that WrestleMania needed a new Phenom to be built around, with Taker dwindling. And I think if you look at 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, Brock was that Phenom, right? So in 31, he's in a title match. 32 is different. Blah, blah, blah. 33, he's in a title match. 34, he's in a title match. 35, he's in a title match. 36, he's in a title match. So it's like, and in all of these matches, 36, he puts over Drew. 35, he puts over Seth. 34, don't want to remember that. 33, he gets his win back against Goldberg, which is necessary, right? But like all of these major things are happening. So yes, I think it was the right move. I just hate that it didn't work the way it should have worked. I hate that Taker got hurt. I hate that he felt that he had to come back. I hate all of this, that. I hate that Brock last minute, the morning of WrestleMania, said, "Yeah, I'm resigning." Like things didn't work out like they should have afterwards. But that doesn't mean that catch point. Shout out to catch point, by the way. If those of you wrestling fans don't talk about that catch point it doesn't mean it wasn't right. I think it was the right thing, right time, right thing.
Yeah.
Do you agree,
and
Paul?
Looping back to the start, we're saying he's probably going to end up on the Mount Rushmore, and it is this run that puts him there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and he's great before.
This run cements him, but in 2 years, Brock did what most wrestlers don't do in 20.
True. Yeah.
So this run cements everything that was done in that 2 years.
Well, I think that was another banging topic. We're really hitting out of the park with these. So, Ray, you've got some big shoes to fill, sir, with your topic for next week's episode.
So I have two. I'm going to let you guys decide.
You only get one. You only get to pick one.
Well, I'm not going to pick it. Y'all are.
Okay.
So, and then I'll say the other one for the next time I come up. How about that?
So you're booking your next two.
Hey, baby. I'm in the thing. All right. Here are the two. And yes, for the record, I Googled some ideas, but great ideas. Idea number one. That's better from the screen. What if Vince McMahon lost the steroid trials and went to jail? Number two, what if WCW was run as a secondary brand company in WWE? Remember, when they bought WCW, the idea of Raw versus SmackDown was supposed to be WWE and WCW. What if that actually happened?
Oh,
two good ones.
Essentially, run as a company post buyout.
Yes, underneath the WWE umbrella.
I mean, there's an obvious path for the steroid one.
Is that though?
I mean, for me, there's an obvious kind of timeline that would happen, but that WCW one, that's pretty interesting.
I'm trying to do my best rock eyebrow on the camera.
Yeah, I'm airing towards the WCW one.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the other one, and we should go back to the other one as well.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, next week, what if WCW continued to run under the WWE umbrella?
Great topic.
That's gonna be a good one.
It'll be very, very interesting to kind of essentially book WCW under WWE. So yeah, it'll be interesting to look at. So that's next week.
And let's do it like this, just so we can have one starting point. Vince has to buy WCW, and we have to start. Well, maybe we can start from he buys WCW. I was gonna say we have to start from WCW Monday Nitro, the Booker T and Buff Bagwell match at the end, but maybe that's not fair. What do you guys want to come up with some universal starting point, or do you want to just take it how you want to take it?
I think the starting point has to be the simulcast, surely.
I was going to go further than that, but that's cool too. Okay, we can do that. We can do some simulcast.
Is the simulcast where Shane appears on the?
Yeah. I it's McMahon, but it's not Vince. It's Shane McMahon. Yeah,
I think that should be the starting point.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Because that was when we as fans knew it was happening. I suppose that the WWE had bought their competition.
The only reason I'm bringing it up as a question is because that's when WWE bought WCW, but that's not the what if. The what if is when they were starting the second brand.
Yeah, I get that, but
so that's not, and that's all post invasion.
I mean, it's your topic. At the end of the day, you set. I mean, you brought it to the table, so you set the parameters. Where do you think it would be the best kind of starting point? Do you want to start at the point where we as fans knew that WWE had bought WCW and that they were going to envelop the company, or do we start when WCW is a thing, or WWE WCW is a thing?
So I think there's more threads to go, and it may be more fun for us if we start from the simulcast. But where my mind was going originally from this topic was after the invasion ended. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's an important point in my mind is because from that moment in 99 or in 2001 until the invasion ends, which is what, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, there's so many wrestlers that didn't come over yet.
Yeah.
Right. So, but after the invasion, that's the whole reason there was the brand split, because there was the whole full roster of both companies. We got to put them somewhere. So that was my thinking, but I'm fine with doing from the simulcast because that gives more options.
I think I confused the timeline a little bit. So the WWE's version of WCW wasn't until after the invasion.
WWE.
The invasion was pretty much after WrestleMania.
So Shane bought WCW, and they made it a part of Shane and Vince's feud to WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
At the match of WrestleMania 17, by the way, shout out in Houston. When he comes out, he shouts out the WCW wrestlers in a box at the Astrodome. Right?
Yeah.
Later on, they try the last match of Raw being Booker versus Buff and Scott.
But even before that, I think don't you see Lance Storm being the first crossover wrestler?
Well, so
he comes in and interferes in a match.
The invasion happens first because you start seeing random ECW wrestlers come. Booker T's first appearance was in that match with Stone Cold versus Jericho versus Voldemort, and he slides in and drops Stone Cold on the table, and the table he lands on the thing and messes up his back. That's why he doesn't wrestle for so long. So the invasion happens first before they try the WCW thing.
Mm-hmm.
Before they try it as a show, I believe. I think that's right.
So the reason why the reason why I think the simulcast will make a good jump off point is because you get that whole monologue from Vince about what he's going to do with the company.
I agree. I agree now. I think
whether he's just going to keep the tape library and just watch it himself, whether he's going to bring over the wrestlers, because he mentions a shitload of the wrestlers to like different cheers and pops. So I think that we can use that as a starting point. But I also like the fact that we've got the invasion, and I'm sure if we started the simulcast, the invasion may still be a thing that happens. But I think there's more legs to have ideas if we start exactly that kind of fulcrum point of the simulcast.
Well, the beauty is we have the pin and the penis mightier than the sword.
Wow.
That's it wrong?
The masculine toxicity.
I said that
wrong? What a way to end. What a way to end. So yeah, next week's episode, folks, will be WCW. What if they were run as a WWE umbrella brand? Tolly, time for your favorite part of the week. Give us that outro.
Well, do we want to give our Twitters first before he goes on?
No, that's all him. He does that
promo.
Okay. He doesn't trust me not to fuck it up.
I believe in you, Paul.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thanks everybody for tuning in again, downloading and listening. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I hope you agree that this is going really well as a format, and looking forward to next week's discussion on WCW and all the discussions we're going to have in the future. It's a privilege that you listen and enjoy the show. You can find us over on Twitter. Lord Magsy here is over at PodfatherMags. You can follow him over there, and he's got an abundance of podcasts all over the place covering every topic you would wish to have a podcast on. 5 Rounds Pod on UFC and MMA. You've got he's over on Radio Techers covering football, soccer.
You said that.
Soccer.
As well as a number of other wrestling podcasts as well, such as the brilliant Chain Wrestling. Happy birthday, Chain Wrestling, 1 year old.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. We've got Ray Cash is over at It's Ray Cash, and that is Ray as in Mysterio and Cash with a $sign.
Hey,
CASH as in dollars.
Exactly. And Ray as well. He's all over Chairshot Radio. On the Outsider's Edge, you got Bandwagon Nerds, and you've also got the Cash In, also on Radio Techers.
3-Man Weave.
3-Man Weave.
Favorites.
So these two are all over the place. I'm a lot more exclusive. You can only find me here every Thursday.
He's the Brock Lesnar of the show. Just rocks up for this, puts us over, and then waltzes off.
Back to the farm.
If you do want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Raincounter. But most important of all, if you've not already and you've just stumbled across this, go over to your podcast provider of choice and subscribe to Chairshot Radio Network, where you can find all those lovely things and more. And including us every single Thursday. Also, head over to the t-shirt company that I forgot. Pro Wrestling Tees.
That's all.
Wrestling Tees / Chairshot.
Let's just quote Tolly. He's scared that I'm going to fuck this up.
I believe in you, Paul.
Come on now. Give me a chance here. Give me a chance. Lots of lovely merch goodies over there. Treat yourself for Christmas, for the holidays, or treat a loved one to some wonderful designs over on there. Or head over to the Chairshot.com for all your hard-hitting pro wrestling news and opinion. It's great articles, and obviously you can find links to all these shows there as well. So once you've done all that, enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you come back next week to listen again. We'll look forward to talking to you. Always use your head. Take care, everyone.
TheChairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast. It's on at McDonald's. Now get any breakfast sandwich for just $2. Available only through the app. Mobile order and pay available at participating McDonald's. McD app download and registration required.
For the ones going above and beyond. For the ones reaching out, helping out, and lending a hand. For the ones people count on. You can count on Grainger. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. Backed by 24/7 customer support and specialists to help with hard-to-find products. Because you've got everyone's back. We've got yours. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.